1. Xander. That's all from us at Global News on this Thursday evening. I'm Alexander Thorne. Thank you for watching, and good night. Aiming my familiar smile toward camera 1, I watched the final words on the teleprompter disappear, and then heard in my ear, "And we're out. You're all clear." I nodded toward the cameraman, indicating we were good to go, then shut my laptop as the door to the studio was pulled open and Jim Burkle, my executive producer, walked inside. With his headpiece still in place, but the microphone now shut off, he crossed the floor with a tight expression on his exhausted face and tried for a smile, which he failed at miserably. "Good show tonight. Nice work, especially the A and C blocks. They were very smooth." I gathered up the papers in front of me and eyed my EP closely. Jim and I had worked together for nearly 6 years now, him in my ear feeding me the most important facts and information about some of the biggest news events the country had ever seen. But in all the time that I'd known him, I couldn't once remember him kissing my ass quite so spectacularly after a run-of-the-mill broadcast. Over the last 24 hours, nothing catastrophic had happened, meaning the stories we'd run with tonight hadn't been last minute and the material had been well prepared. So the grim line to his mouth and stress lurking in his weary eyes could only mean one thing. Something was up in-house. Something I wasn't going to like. I agree, it was a good night. And as much as I appreciate your post-show wrap-up and review, why don't you stop buttering me up and tell me the real reason you're in here? That is the real reason. Somehow, I sincerely doubt that. I pushed back from my desk, got to my feet, and pulled the earpiece from my ear. You only ever rush in here after a show if I mess up, or if Marcus is on the warpath. Marcus wants to speak to you. In his office. Damn it. I hated being right. But if Marcus St. James, the president of the news division, wanted to speak to you privately, it was never about anything good. Why? Don't know. Do you really not know? Or know and just don't want to tell me? Doesn't matter. Not really. If Marcus called, you answered. That was just the way it went, even if your name was number 1 in the news world. Tell him I'll be up once I change. He said now. Okay then. I knew better than anyone else that if Marcus said jump, your only response better be, how high? I unclipped my mic and earpiece and handed it to Jim as we exited the studio. Now that the night was winding down, well, our portion of it, the newsroom was a muted version of itself. Heads were bent over keyboards and eyes were glued to computer screens as everyone wrapped up their work for the evening, preparing to leave in the next hour or so. But as I passed by my assistant's desk, Ryan looked up and pointed his pen in my direction. Marcus wants to see me, I know. Ryan glanced at Jim, who was trailing my every step, and then added, Yes, but he said alone. Fantastic. That didn't bode well at all. This seemingly straightforward night was getting more cryptic and annoying as it went along. There were only 2 reasons a person was ever called into Marcus St. James' office, and one usually ended with the person never setting foot in the building again. But I hadn't done anything wrong, not that I could recall, so what the almighty upstairs wanted with me was anyone's guess. Right, tell him I'm on my way up then, would you? As I walked off toward the double doors of the newsroom, I heard Ryan call out, Sure thing, boss. I pushed through them and made a beeline for the elevators. Marcus's office was 2 floors up, and as I got in and punched his number, I glanced at my watch. It was just going on 6:15, and it was coming up on the end of my workday. When the door slid open and I stepped out into the hall, a wall-sized poster of my face with Global News with Alexander Thorne splashed across the image greeted me. It was the new promo that the station was rolling out for the summer, and as I stood there sizing myself up, I decided they hadn't done a bad job. With my new studio set of the world highlighted in blue and white lights behind me, it brought out my eyes and the silver highlights of my dark hair. All in all, it looked classy, sophisticated, worldly. In other words, exactly what the network had been going for. I headed down the hall to Marcus's office, passing by the desk where Carmen, his assistant, usually sat. It seemed she'd been dismissed for the evening, judging by the empty seat and otherwise sparse floor. And as I reached his office door, all I could think was, lucky Carmen. I took a second to brace myself, and then I knocked. "It's open." I pushed open the door and stepped inside the one place in the building I actively tried to avoid, and when my eyes landed on the man seated behind the ostentatious desk, I waited for Marcus to look up and acknowledge me. He didn't. "You're late. The broadcast finished 15 minutes ago." My spine stiffened at the accusatory tone. His voice was that of a school principal addressing a petulant child, as opposed to the network and country's #1 news anchorman. When I didn't immediately reply, Marcus finally looked up from whatever it was he'd been reading and pinned me with an expectant look. But I'd be damned if I apologized. "It took me a couple of minutes to unmic and get up here." "I see." Marcus pushed back from the desk and got to his feet, and at 6 foot and a whole lot of extra inches, he was an imposing figure to say the least. Add in his autocratic demeanor, cunning eyes, and golden head of hair, and he reminded me of a lion sizing up his next meal. At 42, Marcus was considered young in the world of broadcasting, but that hadn't stopped him from earning a reputation for being cutthroat and tenacious when it came to his job. He had a stare that could cut glass, and a disposition that left you ice cold, and in all the time that I had known him, I couldn't once remember seeing him smile. "You had a good show tonight." The statement was more factual than complimentary as he walked around his desk. "I did." I left it at that, because really, I didn't know him anything else. I'd been working at ENN for years now, nearly 10, and I knew my worth, just as Marcus did. So, if he had an issue or something on his mind, then he could damn well say it. Marcus clasped his hands behind his back as he stopped in front of me. "There's no easy way to say this." "Then how about you just say it?" My frosty tone had Marcus narrowing his eyes, but after being summoned up here like a level 1 intern, my patience was growing thin. "Very well. A threat was made against you this morning on the station's website." Okay, that wasn't what I'd been expecting. A thorough dress down over something I did, maybe, but a threat? Yes. Well, he definitely had my attention now. It wasn't like I hadn't had threats made against me in the past. I was an out-gay news anchor, so it kind of came with the territory, whether it be about the stories I reported or my personal life. But what was different this time was that Marcus had called me into his office. He'd never done that before. "That's nothing new," I pointed out. "No, it's not. But the nature of this threat is, and this is the third one you've received in a matter of days, from the same person." Hang on a minute. There's been more than one? How did I not know about this if it's been going on for days? There's been 3, and the first one came in on Monday. Why wasn't I told then? Because I wasn't convinced it was serious then. And you are now? I am. Marcus turned to his desk and grabbed up the papers he'd been looking at. Take a look for yourself. I took the papers from him, zeroing in on the 3 messages that had been lifted from the ENN Twitter feed and emailed to Marcus. Meant to be mine. At Alexander Thorne. I saw you on last night's broadcast, you looking at me, telling me to have a good night, and I knew it was time to finally introduce myself. Time to come out from the shadows and say hello. So, hello, Alexander. I'll be seeing you soon. Message 2. Meant to be mine, at Alexander Thorne. A venti red-eye every morning before work. So that's how you make it through the long hours. I always wondered, you know. But that barista, Kyle, he's a little too friendly. IMO. You might want to tell him that you're taken. Tell him that you're mine. I swallowed around the lump that had suddenly formed in the back of my throat and tried to squash down the rising bile. This guy was delusional. But even more alarming, he knew what kind of coffee I drank and where I got it from. How could he know all of that unless he'd been following me? But it was the last message that really made the hair on the back of my neck rise. Meant to be mine. At Alexander Thorne. Why are you making me wait like this? Playing the fucking tease? This distance you're keeping between us is killing me when you know we should be together. I want to touch you, be with you, Alexander. You're meant to be mine, and soon you will be. As you can see, the last message is what concerns us the most, Marcus said, cutting through the panic that was now threatening to overwhelm me. Whoever this is, the threats are escalating. The tone is much angrier. They want contact, a one-on-one interaction, and they know your address. Right, I said as I read my home address on the tweet directly under the last. I walked over to look out the window to the buildings across from Marcus's office, and for the first time wondered who was over there looking back at me. Meant to be mine? No, that was just crazy thinking. Look, Marcus said when I remained silent, it's probably just some overzealous fan, but we're going to need you to take on some security. Some security? Yes. Some is the wrong word, though. More like 24-hour security until we work out where these messages are coming from and have them stopped. Don't worry, you're insured. It's all part of your contract. It is? This was the first time I'd heard about it. Then again, I'd never had such a personal threat aimed at me before. Still, the idea of some random stranger following me everywhere. I don't know that 24-hour security is necessary. You're talking about a bodyguard? That makes me uncomfortable. Plus, my building is secure. I don't care. You don't care? No. You're worth far too much alive for me to care about your comfort level here, Alexander. You need security until this is taken care of, and I don't give a damn how you feel about that. I could tell by the square set of his jaw that Marcus wasn't about to budge, and if I really thought about it, he was right. This person knew where I lived. They knew where I worked, and the idea that they'd been watching my every move sent a shiver down my spine. Fine, I'll hire someone, okay? Marcus opened his mouth to no doubt tell me the company would take care of it, but I quickly cut him off. I'm the one who's going to be spending all my time with them, so I should get to pick who it is. I immediately thought about my best friend Bailey and his boyfriend Henry's new PI company. They might be a good option, but the idea of asking either of them to move in and protect me when they just recently moved in with one another somehow felt wrong. I supposed I could ask Sean, Bailey's oldest brother and total pain in the ass, for some advice. He was a detective with the Chicago Police Department and would no doubt have a few connections with personal security firms. But I wasn't at all comfortable with going to Sean and asking for help. Yes, we'd known each other nearly all our lives, but we'd never had an easy relationship, more a relationship due to circumstance. I was in his brother Bailey's life, therefore I was also in his, but what other option did I have? I know someone who should be able to get me in touch with the right people, I said. Should be able to? That's not good enough. Will be able to. You need to get on this tonight. I want a name by tomorrow. Tomorrow? Yes, tomorrow. Or you'll get whoever I stick you with. Marcus pointed to the messages on the paper. This person is not fucking around, and you'd be smart not to either. I nodded, understanding the severity of the situation even though I didn't want to. Okay, leave it with me. I fished my cell phone out of my pocket to look for Sean's number. I'll have a name for you by tomorrow. See that you do, Marcus said as I headed for his office door. Oh, and Alexander? Yes? Be careful who you trust. People aren't always who they appear to be. I frowned, but nodded as I opened the door and headed out into the hall, where I hit Detective Sean Bailey's number and waited for him to answer. Hey there, I'm Charlie, the guy behind the Border to Border Entertainment channel. A lot of the TV shows and movies and videos that are posted here are ones that I created. I want to invite you to join my channel. It's our own club and it's named after what I like to do best. We make love stories. Let me break it down for you. In Tier 1, you're telling the world, I like love stories. You'll rock a loyalty badge that screams, I belong, that changes each month that you're a member. Plus, you'll unlock our own channel emojis to make your comments pop. And trust me, I'll always slide into your comments first. Priorities, right? And maybe you're ready to say, I love love stories. In Tier 2, you'll get early access to new videos and podcasts. Because who doesn't like being first? And you'll also get exclusive members-only photos and status updates on the community board. Oh, and of course, everything from Tier 1 comes along for the ride. And for my biggest, boldest lovers, Tier 3 is for those who want to say, we make love stories, together. This is where the real action happens. Members-only videos, some that are too hot for YouTube, trust me, it's our little secret. Oh, and don't worry, you still get all the perks from Tiers 1 and 2. So whether you like, love, or want to make love stories, there's a place for you in my club. Just hit that join button below, pick your level, and let's take this relationship to the next level.